Greetings, lovelies, and welcome to another edition of the Last Newsdesk on the Left. I am your host, Mac Paladin. And let me get right to it. Let's introduce the crew. Adam, what's cooking?
Hello.
And of course, we've got Kevin in the house.
Hello.
Petty Fan.
Oh God, where am I?
The Golics.
Yes. Crap, I just got a Godzilla ad and it scared me.
And Twilight Winter is in the room lurking.
Indeed I am.
All right. Depending on your point of view, we have a great show for you tonight. This could be the best episode. This could be the best episode of Last Newsdesk ever, or it could be the worst day of your life if you're one Matt Gaetz. Adam?
You know what? It could actually possibly be a worse day of your life if you're one Matt Gaetz who's been getting a lot of angry ads.
The pains of having a similar name.
It's like, leave me alone! I had nothing to do with it!
He said this. He keeps saying wrong guy. You know,
He's a bot at this point.
I think he does.
Oh my
Yeah,
lord.
it might be a bot.
Yeah.
Oh my
You would
lord.
not blame him for setting that up. Because, you know, the only problem he has is he's got a similar name to, I guess at this point, an accused pedophile.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you know, I mean, you can't get canceled on Twitter if you never had an account.
I'm just imagining that one meme now, the black guy pointing to his head.
Yep. Yeah, that one.
Boy, if this
I need to figure out the actual name of that one.
if this all shakes out, and he's if they go all the way with this if this doesn't get an expulsion from Congress, I don't know what will.
I think expulsion from Congress is the least.
Well, I mean, at this point, it's like, how low do we have to set the bar? How high do we have to jump to get over the fucking hurdle to get somebody out of Congress? We can't. It's like, dude.
You know, the Senate is a renowned and august was the word I was looking for, and respectable institution. Expelling pedophiles would make them look bad.
Yeah, but he's not a senator. The House would have to deal with him.
Yeah, the House Ethics Committee and
Well, the
if
United
he's,
States House of Representatives is an august and
yeah, if he's ever indicted, that guy will be out of that chamber in 5 seconds.
Yeah. Keep in mind, the House is democratically controlled right now. So
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, they would have to get rid of him. They would have to get rid of him in such a way that he can't come back like a bad penny later.
Oh, I mean, at this point, if he's actually, indicted for anything, the Republicans would want him out of that building in 5 minutes, or because he would be the symbol of the midterm elections for the Republicans, and you could bet on that.
also keep in mind that his own party fucking hates him, which I
Yes.
think is the bigger thing here. Because
Yes.
keep in mind, Republicans, they don't have too many problems with sexual predators.
No.
Keep in mind that the longest, how do I put this? The congressperson who got the longest sentence was one of these and was a Speaker of the House, Daniel Hastert.
Pastor, yeah.
Now he wasn't known to be that in Congress, if I'm remembering correctly, but
Right.
they still have a thing called the Hastert Rule.
Yep. Yep.
So-
The majority rule is named after him.
Yeah, keep that in mind.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Of course, nobody knew that he was a pedophile, and it only came out after he left Congress, and it's like, wait, he's a what? He did
Yeah.
what?
And also worth noting that this whole thing started with rumors that apparently Matt Gaetz was going to resign or not seek election. He was seeking.
Yeah, he was going around telling his friends, I'm kind of tired of this Congress thing. I want to be on Newsmax TV, so I'm going to retire. Wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, that's why you're talking like that.
Yeah. Oh.
God. Oh my God.
And if you don't know who Matt Gaetz is, I envy you. I can't even say he's the worst politician from Florida.
That's obviously true. You can't say that.
I'm like,
He's-
I wish
Plenty of options.
Apparently, someone dug up an exchange. Actually, I'm not sure if this might not have actually been real, so I won't even go into it. But it was just a joke. So
Matt Gaetz, congressional representative and low polygon life doll.
Yes. Like,
Yep.
Human chisel.
Yeah.
I believe that's the one you used last night, Adam.
Yeah.
Like, call them shovel face.
Yeah. And of course, he's not the worst of the congressional Republicans. We know that for a fact.
Oh, no.
I mean, he's up there, but he's not the worst. Guess what? My congresswoman is probably.
Once again, on the Senate side, I'd say that.
I think even MTG is backing away from him at this point.
Well, I mean, she's not going to be on board that big.
I mean, especially since it's obvious now that she's not his type. She's a little too. She's a little. I would say she's a little aged out.
Anyhow,
Meanwhile,
in other news,
Well, I guess in other news, we got to go to the other side of the Florida-Georgia line.
Uh-oh.
hi, how you doing?
Hello.
Yes, Brian Kemp is on a mission to desperately try to cling on to Republicans remaining in power in the state, despite the fact that the Atlanta metropolitan area is him and Republicans' worst nightmare.
Right, because they passed, what was it, 8? What was
It was
the,
SB 202. SB 202.
which is the most restrictive voter rights.
Voting rights in air quotes there. I'll put that in air quotes.
So, since like the era of Jim Crow. Although yes, it's also modern day Jim Crow, because this will, shock upon shocks, disproportionately affect voters of color.
Mm.
Yes.
Because it was designed to disproportionately affect voters of color.
Yep.
no,
But-
you see, the fact that it targets all of the times when like black people are most likely to vote, like Sunday after church, and makes it so like it's harder to stand in line to vote because they made it so that black people's or locations with lots of black people have longer lines can't like get drinks or anything from anyone, because that would be I guess trying to sway votes or whatever the I don't know what the
Yeah,
fucking
let
excuse
me
for that was.
epitomize how big of a dud this is in terms of PR. Like, it turns out it's really hard to justify not giving water to people standing in line.
Yep.
especially in fucking Georgia.
You
Well,
know,
and what's really going to swing the public opinion against this is when it starts inconveniencing white voters in Georgia. But
Yep. Because let me tell you something.
because it will.
The things that they put in this bill, it's not just going to affect voters of color, although it's going to predominantly affect them. It's also going to affect voters in rural Georgia too.
Well, and they were trying so hard to make this bill seem not racist
Yeah.
that
And
it's going to
did-
affect people that they didn't intend it to affect.
Yeah.
And all
Although I will say technically did get somewhat trimmed down from what it was originally, but really that doesn't really matter at this point. It's still what it is, and you know it's already backfiring really, because you know the corporate people down here are having to moonwalk all the way back from the bill that they partially kind of helped put into place.
Yeah.
Because you know, when you're seeing the, you know, Delta CEO and the Coke CEO and all the CEOs of these companies that were and still are being targeted, rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
They were pretty much part of the process of putting this bill together, and now all of a sudden they're saying that this bill is bad, that this bill is what we all know it to be.
Yeah.
But they unfortunately can't do this because they're going to try to do this to make you believe that, you know, they didn't have any part of this process, and they have been a part of this process, and now we have a situation where it's going to be the GOP versus corporate Georgia in America, and I don't think that it's going to end well for the Republicans down here, and it also might not end well for the corporation at the end of the day neither, because everybody's going to see through everybody sees through the nonsense that they're trying to do here and trying to have it both ways.
Yeah.
It's also, we've learned how to boycott effectively in the past few years, because
yes,
if anything, this is reminding me of the North Carolina bathroom bill.
Yep.
Indeed.
And
Yes, it
I've
is.
seen a similar kind of pressure being applied. It's not
Yep.
boycott, you know, I know there are people calling for boycott Georgia, but clearly what's going on in Georgia is the boycotting is being pressured selectively.
Specific corporations, right? Specific
And
corporations.
And this is exactly what happened in North Carolina. It
Right.
wasn't blanket boycott. It was, you know, taking away like the fucking, what was it, NCAA in March. This thing, like, there's something to do with.
Although I don't think that would be effective neither, specifically in this state, because you actually do have here in Georgia specific companies that you can't target that would affect right here in Georgia. And there's one company in particular
let's be honest.
who
If
can
they
hit for the
try to
death
do,
knell.
sorry, let's be honest. If they try to do boycott Georgia, I'm sure it'll go over perfectly well, just like when boycott Arizona, you know, didn't at all inconvenience the New York-based beverage company.
Right. But here in Georgia, it's a different story, because Coca-Cola is born, breaded, and raised right here in the Atlanta metropolitan area.
Not to mention Cox Communications, based out of Atlanta.
I don't think Cox is one of the companies here. I think the other company you're thinking of is Home Depot. That's based here.
No, but Cox Cable is, as far as I know, they are based in Atlanta, Georgia.
I've heard
Cox is based here, but the three companies in particular that are at the center of these targeted boycotts is Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines, and the Home Depot.
Well, I'm
based
just saying.
in Atlanta.
I'm just saying that if they have to get more push, it won't be long before Cox joins the fray on this, because I think they have a stake in this kind of thing.
Yeah. Although I don't think I think most of the big three companies are the ones that I spoken of, are the ones that are the hardest targets here, because
no question about that.
Basically, they are very specifically based here. They were born here. They were bred here. They are part of the fabric of Atlanta. So that's why you're seeing
them to just try to boycott peaches.
You know,
you can't really do
Jesus,
that, because
Tippy.
that would affect people. That would actually affect real people here. So, but
I will say
Most
this.
people who boycott things are stupid.
You know,
although if they're done in a very specific and a very targeted and in the right way, it works. That's the reason why you see them trying to do this, you know, play both sides thing that they're doing here, because they could have easily just left it at their initial timid, weak statements that pretty much didn't seem to understand the situation or didn't read the room, and now they're walking all the way back from the bills that they had a hand in putting together.
You know,
So-
this response is this response to this whole thing, especially with all this backing. You know, Black Americans in the South, especially in deep red Georgia, have had to endure the Underground Railroad, Jim Crow, and the Civil Rights Movement. And to finally see them in 2021 getting some backup from corporate America,
Yeah.
it's heartening to see how the winds of change are blowing.
Well, I would push back a little bit on that and note that corporate America in the 1960s was very key in making Atlanta, and Atlanta specifically, deeply desegregated compared to other cities here in the South.
Well, no, I understand that. I'm not disputing that, but how the pendulum swung back for a while, especially in the Reagan era, which is where a lot of this resurgence of the lost cause and the South will rise again and all that bullshit really came to prominence because Reagan really heavily employed the Nixon strategy,
Right.
the Southern strategy, the sort of Barry Goldwater-esque politics of the 60s to try and turn the South red. And so seeing the pendulum swing back, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. If there's any state that is leading the way on this, it's in this state, because because Atlanta is the center of a lot of universes, really. And there's a reason why the state went blue. There's a reason why you have both of those senators up there. There's a reason for all of that.
Right.
It's because Georgia is where you have probably has the strongest state Democratic Party in the South. It's a state that has a very energized grassroots, community movements, whatever, here in Atlanta specifically. And the demographic trends are probably as hard here as they were last decade in the 2000s in Northern Virginia.
Right. I think I would amend my statement to say that it's heartening to see all of these elements finally come together.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That it's not just one thing. It's all of these things finally coming together and saying, okay, fuck this bullshit, that's enough.
Yep, pretty much.
And what's so amazing to me, and I realize I'll probably take heat for saying that it's amazing or expressing any incredulity at this point of the Republican Party, but it's amazing to me the incredible lack of self-awareness to do this on the heels of a literal insurrection.
Yeah.
And then to try and back the party that backed the monster that threw all of their good people under the bus.
Yeah. See, the thing about it is that it's basically a continuation of I would say, decade, 15-year belief that we must be scared of our base of voters. We must worry about the potential of someone to our right primarying us. We must know the fact that our base of supporters, because of the fact that we allowed these insurgent elements to bubble, grow, and thrive over the course of a decade, that
I mean, is this
themselves into a corner that they did.
Is this some?
They don't want to get out.
Is this some demented way of owning what they've become?
Yes, pretty much.
That's terrible.
Pretty much. Yeah, it is, but it is what it is.
And, as if that isn't depressing enough, the Kentucky Senate and House, the Kentucky legislature, overrode Bashar's veto of their own new attempt at keeping the Republicans in power, and that because we're highly anticipating, given his advanced age, that Mitch McConnell may not survive his term in office, and he wants to make sure, through the power of the dead hand clause, that he cannot be replaced with a Democrat by the current Democratic governor.
Although, you know what? Let's be frank and be honest.
Huh.
Even if he is replaced by a Democrat for what, 6 months to a year, he or she would lose in an election I hope I say this name right. It's Daniel Cameron, the AG, the black AG. That's his successor. Everybody knows it's his successor. He's going to replace Tim Scott as the, hey, we're not all white men and racist. Look, here's a black guy that do the same things that our white people do. We're not racist.
No, but I mean, this is such an oddly specific and targeted law. Like, you want to talk about voter suppression. This is the most amazing thing. I mean, Kentucky
It could be more targeted. They could actually specifically make it if Mitch McConnell dies in the middle of his term.
Yeah.
Or if by some weird confluence of events, Rand Paul kicks off, But here's how specifically targeted it. It's not just that he has to appoint somebody of the same party as the person who was elected to the office, but it is that the governor now has to report to a committee packed with people who are Donald Trump supporters to choose who that is. Whereas traditionally, it has always been that the governor could pick anybody from any party to fill a vacancy at the federal level. And now...
And at some point, all the people from certain other states are just grabbing these people by the neck and shaking them and saying, just hold a special election.
I mean, do we have to move the entirety of Oakland into Kentucky to, make this a reality, to change this demographic once and for all and put an end to this bullshit?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's no saving the white people who are putting these racists into power. None. It's not worth trying anymore. They're too far gone. They've made their bed. They should be able to lie in it.
We just have to defeat them externally.
Yes, unfortunately. Because, look, they've made their bed. They put their chips down on the table. There's nothing we can do. Nothing. They don't want to listen to us. They don't want to have a actual real conversation. They just want to shoot us down. They want to yell at us. They want to complain. They want to, say all these sorts of things and say it in a way that doesn't make them seem racist, at least at first, unless you squint and you look closer. So, it's like, forget about it. And unfortunately in Kentucky, it's going to even if Bashar is able to put in a Democrat for 6 months to a year, he or she would lose in an election to a Republican because Kentucky is that red.
Even though they somehow elected a Democratic governor.
Well, that's because Bevin was just that bad that even Republicans hated him. That's not going to be the case with Cameron. Republicans love him, and the reasons why they love him are sinister, but they love him nonetheless. It's not going to be a Bevin situation. In fact, if they find a Republican that isn't Bevin, but is just Bevin enough to not alienate Republicans, Bashar is going to lose, and it'll be back to being a Republican state again.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that anyone should force there to be a Democratic senator from Kentucky. It's just the way that they're going around to make it definitely not happen is
it's so flagrant.
Awkward.
Yeah, it's so
it's flagrant, but I'm sorry, but I can't be upset about that as I should be, because Kentucky has already made itself pretty damn clear about what it is.
There's no surprises here. There's none whatsoever. None
No.
whatsoever.
I mean, yes, it's a power move. It's a clear power move. But unfortunately, it's a power move that, even if they didn't make it, Republicans are Daniel Cameron is going to win that seat no matter what. Whether he's appointed by it by force, appointed by it, not by force, or elected. Kentucky is just that red.
At this point, we'd probably have better luck flipping Kansas or North Dakota.
I mean, Kansas is a pretty interesting state.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, at this point, we'd be better off just trying to flip.
Not stupid as shit.
We'd have better luck flipping literally any other flyover state.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Flip Oklahoma, flip Wyoming. Wyoming? Well, I say why not Wyoming?
Not Wyoming, but Oklahoma I could give you. I mean,
No, but I'm just saying, pick a place in that region of the country, in the breadbasket of the country, and say to yourself, we have
And
10
really,
times.
if
I can't say
actual voting rights
10 times better chance of flipping them, because 10 times 0 is still 0.
Yep, pretty much.
And really, if actual voting rights were strengthened enough, you might see surprising places start to turn blue, depending on how people
We'd be
vote.
more likely creating a block between Washington, Oregon, and Idaho.
Yeah.
A Democratic voting block in Idaho at this point.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
I did find it fun.
But
I did
that's
find it
cool.
funny when Marr was trying to flip South Dakota.
mm-hmm.
No, he was trying to flip one seat in South Dakota.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny, and he failed. But it's Bill Maher, so it's like, may all of your plans bear fruit, just not the ones you expected.
Mm-hmm. Anyhow.
I suppose late breaking news here. Apparently, Sarah Palin is for masks now that he tested positive for COVID.
I'm excited about that because it means I get to see less of her face.
I didn't think it could affect me.
And I do want to go on record stating that I have always made it a policy on this show that we not go that low, but fuck Sarah Palin.
Yeah.
and not that way.
Yeah. I mean, before there was Donald Trump, there was Sarah Palin. She kicked off the whole thing. I mean, if you really think about it, what she did in that 2008 campaign, it started the fire that just continued to burn over the course of the next few years. And then Donald Trump came along and said, "Oh, this is an interesting audience. Let me get involved in this."
I just
Took it all the way.
I just feel like she's so vacuously stupid that if she died and donated her brain to science, when they carved open her skull, everybody in the room would be sucked into a micro black hole like it's the Large Hadron Collider. It's just such a. It is so. 2008 politics was so badly marred by the revelation of her existence to the world at large that I actually feel dumber to this day for knowing this.
It is really the question of why did they choose her? We know why she chose her, because they wanted to cash in on the whole Puma thing. That aka the Hillary people who were pissed off that their girl lost to a black man. Right?
I suppose, but
that's what that was. That's what that
aside from bringing Lisa Ann out of retirement, I don't see a benefit to her existence.
No. I'm not saying that there was a benefit. I'm just saying that was the
No, I
reason.
mean even to Republicans.
I mean, I feel like also
Everything she's laid hands on.
To some extent, the "some of my best friends are women" thing.
Right, but Kevin, Gaetz, hear me out on this one. Everything she has touched has turned to shit.
Oh,
No, I mean
She has racked up a hash mark in the L column in literally everything that she's done with the Republican Party since leaving the governorship of Alaska.
I mean, since leaving the governorship, I mean, from the moment that she was tapped as the running mate, not even just her leaving, just the fact that she was the running mate, that killed that ticket.
She not
Now,
only
of course,
made she not only made John McCain look like more of a fuddy-duddy and a misogynist, but she also succeeded in making him look stupid.
Yeah,
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
it was a very stupid move because now maybe he was screwed either way because the economy blew up.
Right.
And that made everybody remember, oh, right, Republican economic policy led us to this point. We can't have that anymore.
Right.
But, so maybe he was screwed either way, right? But you literally could have had anybody else. And not even just men, even just Republican women in general. I mean,
You could have
you could have had anybody else.
you could have had a cat wearing a slice of toast on its face,
Yes.
and it would have done a better job.
Yeah, you literally could have had anybody. Everybody. I mean, John McCain was a war hero. John McCain was a guy had a brand at that time. Now over time, that brand was kind of muddied up, but he still had a brand. Sarah Palin comes in. She wants to make her own brand. She wants to do her own thing. And she does her own thing, and it screws up that whole ticket.
Yeah, but
and
it feels like
at the same time, the people who were more interested in listening to her than him, and then when she did all of the things that she did in riling up those people, that carried in and that carried on.
Yeah, but I mean, it was so bad, man. I mean, it's so bad. I mean, it was almost like she was the Encino Man of strong women in the Republican Party. Like, they defrosted her from under an ice pack in Alaska and brought her out there, and everybody was like, what century is she from?
Or it's like, wait, who is this?
Right.
The governor of Alaska? Wait a minute.
Who?
Wait,
Isn't there more caribou up there than actual people?
And you really could have easily
You
guessed
just
what
reminded me how she fucking quit being governor of Alaska just
Yeah.
because she lost the goddamn.
Yeah. Yeah, she quit. I mean, and if you think about it, you probably should have guessed where this was going, because when they called her to let her know that she was going to be the running mate, she was at the Alaska State Fair, okay? Yeah. They called her at the state fair to let her know, hey, come on down, you're the running mate for the Republican Party. Because we need somebody who's so outside the mainstream, so outside the box. Someone who could lure in the women who are upset about the fact that Hillary Clinton lost to Barack Obama. We need someone who could,
someone
shake things up.
Someone whose ideas were around when the woolly mammoth walked the earth.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably an insult to Neanderthals, honestly. Because at least they knew how to do their job.
At least they knew how to make fire.
Yeah, and they also knew how to finish their job, and not put their things down halfway through.
Oh my lord. This conversation spiraled out of control quickly, but I'm entertained nonetheless.
I mean, I don't think it's that out of control. I mean,
No, I'm just saying. We just went down that hole. I'm not sure if it's even current, but
yeah, but it's important to remember the reasons why we are where we are, and she's
this
one
is
of
true.
them, unfortunately.
I think it really. I mean, yeah, you could see the genesis with Reagan. I mean, if we go back to the poster child.
I mean, that's where it all started. But
yeah, I mean, in fairness, it all started with Reagan, but then it escalated under W. To bring us to that point. It escalated.
Push back a little bit and say it actually intensified with Gingrich in the mid '90s. That whole thing.
Yeah,
Gingrich,
but I'm just saying, as far as a continuation of policies from the top down.
Right.
George W. Bush did stand there at the State of the Union and say, "You're either with us or against us," in complete tone-deaf Goldwater fashion.
Right. Right, it was Reagan, and then it's the Reagan years, and then it re-intensified in the mid and late '90s with the Gingrich people and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, W post 9/11, yeah, that
Because
we were all
people were giving him
for
because
3.5 years.
people were giving him what I call the Reagan pass, which was like yeah, but he's being so proactive and so pro America and and he really believes in what he's saying, and it's like, who cares? I'm sure Hitler believed in what he was saying too.
Look, to be perfectly honest, I firmly believe that
it's not a virtue.
Country, I firmly believe that the entire country was in a total and complete coma from the moment that the entire world witnessed that second plane hit that second tower on live international television until we all saw the images coming out of New Orleans after Katrina.
Yeah.
Like, from those 2 points, we were willing to accept anything and everything that came out of the Republican Party and that administration. Everything. And then after the images of Katrina showed up, it's like, we all woke up and went, what the heck's going on here? Wait, we're in Iraq again? Wait, what are the Republicans doing in the House? What is this Terry Schiavo stuff here? Wait a minute. I mean, it all came to a head, right? But from 9/11 until summer 2005, we basically accepted pretty much anything and everything. If we had woken up like a year before, John Kerry might have won the election and it would be a totally different story. But unfortunately, we accepted the concept of the Iraq connection to 9/11 and WMDs for just long enough a time that he won 4 more years and got the full 2 terms. But at the same time, we all woke up in 2005, and Republicans, and then the Democrats had 2 straight winning elections. And then 2010, America went, screw it, let's have Republicans run everything again.
We tried this whole
brain screamed.
We tried this whole Democratic thing, and it's like you didn't even give it 5 minutes.
Although at the same time there were also Democrats going, "You're not being Democrat enough. You're not being liberal enough. You're not being progressive enough."
Let's be honest about racism here. Keeping in mind, imagine how different it would have been had Hillary somehow won the 2008 election.
Yeah.
There'd be sexism, but at least she's white, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we all saw 2016 and how that Clinton derangement syndrome was everywhere. But
right. No. Because people had time to percolate on that. Keep in mind something that she made the mistake of being Secretary of State under Obama in a hostile arrangement, and then she clusterfucked everything.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind that she did not resign because she had better things to do. She resigned ignominiously. Yeah. So every time everybody would say Secretary Clinton, there would be quotation marks around the word secretary. I mean, people tend to forget this because they're like, oh, you're just against Hillary. Oh, you're just a sexist. Oh, you're just a misogynist. No, Hillary Clinton and the entire Clinton dynasty are fucking toxic. They had a lot of strikes going against them going into this beyond what genitals she had between her legs.
I mean, look, I think that the hate of Hillary was too much. Now,
it is, but she did have some legitimate beefs as far as Democrats are concerned. She had some legitimate strikes against her. That if all things had been equal, if there had been nothing else, forget about the emails. I'm talking about her handling of things leading up to her resignation.
Hers? Wait a minute.
She resigned.
Yeah, she resigned. She resigned because it was the second term, and she quit after the first term, and she also wanted to run for president in 2016. So
she resigned. She resigned after the whole Benghazi thing.
Right, but of course the Republicans overwent on that. So I mean. Look, I don't think Benghazi was going to hurt her with Democrats. Okay, it just wasn't. The hatred of Hillary had a lot to do with Bill. On all sides, a lot of the hatred about Hillary was about Bill.
Well, there's that
About
too.
the fact- yeah.
But I'm saying there was a lot of baggage on there. I'm just saying that the whole Clinton... Notice I stated the whole Clinton dynasty. It wasn't solely on the shoulders of Hillary Clinton. She's... You have to keep in mind that.
Look, I truly think that the hatred of her had a lot to do with the fact that people still hated Bill. And a lot of people just hate Hillary for the fact that she is who she is.
Yeah.
Okay, so the fact of the matter is that there was a Clinton derangement syndrome, and that cost him 16. I don't think at this point you can look at what happened and say that wasn't at least somewhat part of the issue here, right?
Oh, I'm not denying that. There's no
Right.
denying that. I'm just saying going into this there was a lot of baggage. The first thing I ever heard about this was, oh, Clinton's running again. You know, and they're like, we don't want Bill anywhere near the White House.
Yeah.
That was the first two things I heard.
Although even with that, I mean, had like 10 to 20,000 votes went another way, she would have won. So
here's her statement on the resignation. Hold on a second here. I just had it and then I accidentally clicked away from it. Her specific resignation was immediately after Benghazi, and it was about Benghazi. And though she was not formally blamed, where the fuck is it? I just had this quote. I was so unhappy with the way that some people refused to accept the facts, refused to accept the findings of an independent accountability review board, politicized everything about this terrible attack, she said. My job is to admit that we have to make improvements, and we're going to. So Benghazi was hurting her. Didn't matter what the findings of the review board were. They latched onto this. And listen, man, I've been pretty much a lifelong Democrat. Okay? Even though I sometimes vote independent, I've been a lifelong Democrat. And even I was looking at it like, this is going to fuck you, Hillary.
I don't think Benghazi was anywhere about this, was a part of the situation. I think, maybe it cost her with maybe winning over crossover votes. But I don't think Benghazi was on the mind of Democrats going anywhere.
I've just, from a lot of Democrats, I've always heard the I'll hold my nose and vote for her because she's better than the alternative. There was not a lot of love for her in the Democratic Party, especially after the way she and Bill handled the primaries in 2008. They went on the attack and the offensive, and there was a lot of...
Yeah. I mean, look, I myself, in 2016, ironically, I wanted actually Biden to run in 2016. I was one of the people who wanted Biden to run in 2016 because
absolutely. I think he would have been a shoo-in on the sympathy vote.
Yeah.
I think he would have been. It was very much an American president situation. I think it was very much an Aaron Sorkin, the American president situation, to where, everybody would have been like, oh, it was so terrible what happened to Beau, and Trump is a bully, and how dare you treat our guy Joe this way, old Uncle Joe, how dare you talk to him this way? And then they had time to cool off on that. It's just it's just everything about it from.
Look, I think Joe probably would have done well in 2016, but there are a lot of things to consider with that. First of all, Barack never was a fan of his running for president.
Yep.
Not in 2016, and not even in 2020 neither. We all remember the story about how he told his staff, just make sure he doesn't embarrass himself. So.
Well, he had the reputation as being a three-time loser.
Right.
He people forget this, but he also primaried out in 2008.
Yeah.
1988.
Barack Obama saved him from political relevancy.
Yes.
Period. End of story.
The whole narrative about their bromance and being best buds and all of that stuff, I've always felt was a little suspect.
Although it did become real by the end, but
True.
When you have a situation like that, even in bromances, you still have conflict sometimes.
Of course.
You still have conflict. So, but yeah, I mean, Barack saved him for political relevancy. So yeah, I mean, Joe wanted to run in 2016. He made it clear that he wanted to run, and then when he had a chance to run again, he ran again and he won. But yeah, I mean,
I think all right.
I wanted Biden to run because I did have 2008 on the brain. A lot of people had 2008 on the brain and remember how, Bill Clinton and Barack and Hillary Clinton.
So to be clear,
Barack like crap, and the whole Jesse Jackson situation, and everybody was upset about the hard turn to the white working class vote at that point in South Carolina and otherwise. It rubbed black people the wrong way. I mean,
to be absolutely clear about this, though. This is not me. This is not me criticizing Hillary herself, but her situation and her circumstances leading into that election were not good, and because of a series of events between 2008 and 2016, I don't think she was the best candidate. No matter how qualified she was.
Right.
We are not denigrating her ability.
Right.
But she did not have a lot of political capital to play.
Yeah. Although frankly, she still did have a lot.
She did, but not as much clout as she could have had prior to 2008 and the events, and then Benghazi, and then not being able to deflect the idiocy of all the myriad of ridiculous investigations. I don't know if there was anything she could have done. Again, that's not her fault. I'm just saying that there was a perfect storm of events that made that weakened her candidacy.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't disagree with that.
I'm glad she's still a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
To be clear. I'm glad she's still a force for positive change, especially since the Clinton Foundation is doing their thing again.
Yeah, I mean, she could have easily just quit politics after 16.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody would have blamed her.
No,
because,
not at all.
I mean,
I don't want to make enemies on this podcast. I just want to make absolutely certain. I just want to make absolutely certain that there is a series of events here that made this all unfortunate. And even back then, I voted for Sanders in that primary because I literally did not see a path to victory. That's how fucked up that situation was.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that she probably might have had a chance if that last week, we found some things in Anthony Weiner's computer.
Oh,
if that thing didn't happen, if that thing didn't happen, I actually think she might have won.
That's a very strong possibility. That October surprise, yes.
Right. That happened at a particular point in October. It's about the timing of that. Like, it happened during the heat of the pre-election early voting period, right?
But, she also didn't do herself any favors by failing to campaign in the Rust Belt at the last minute. She sent Obama down to Florida. And that was about it.
And then I think that's because of the fact that she got bad data from people who thought, we have no risk here in Wisconsin. I mean, it's always closed. I mean, it is what it is. It's going to be. It's like,
it fed into the narrative that she was low energy. The bullshit that Trump was peddling that she was low energy. Voters in those states felt like she, and if you listen to the exit polls and the interviews with people, they were talking about the fact that they felt like she gave up on them, like they weren't important to her.
Well, yeah, that's probably what happened.
That's like the worst possible outcome in polling data.
Of course, when it comes to Wisconsin and when it comes to Michigan, voter suppression in Milwaukee and Detroit had a lot to do with that too.
Oh yeah, no question about that.
Everything
sucked.
She didn't campaign there, probably has a lot to do with the fact that it has bad data involved, but also the fact that people underestimated the power of that suppression apparatus up there. Because remember, Scott Walker was running things in Wisconsin at that time.
Yeah, but even he got defeated.
True, but that didn't happen until 18.
True, but he ultimately got hoisted upon his own petard. This is what I was talking about when I was talking about the voting situation down in Georgia, and the fact that I'm firmly convinced that Black America will rise up against any attempt to hold them back.
Right. I mean,
and how heartening it is to see that support. I think the same thing will eventually happen in other areas where voter suppression is a thing. People will walk for hundreds of miles if necessary to get their damn vote heard.
I mean, it became clear after 16 that voter suppression needed to be beaten and needed to be beaten by massive turnout, massive collective action.
Yeah.
Right?
And eventually, if they eventually retake these state houses as permanent amendments to the Constitution.
Right. But it's like we needed to see like it actually in action, and we didn't see it until 2016, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, because all of the voter ID, all the voter suppression, all of that stuff happened after 2012, after the re-election, because everybody was in racist Republican world was absolutely angered over the fact that the black guy got re-elected. You can't have that.
Oh yeah.
So they worked over the course of the next 4 years to put that machine together, and then 2016 showed us the power of that. Well, of course, there was, it was the combination of voter suppression and Clinton derangement syndrome that led to what happened there.
Okay, I think we've beat this horse.
That was the combination. Right.
We're actually in agreement here, but we're beating this horse to death, and I can't ban this bot. Why am I not a moderator in my own channel?
So, but yeah, I think we've gotten where we needed. We've gotten all that we've gotten out of that.
There we go.
So, shifting to something more current, I suppose.
I should probably also note here, by the way, that it is now midnight. So happy April Fool's Day, ladies and gentlemen, and please watch whatever is on the internet for the next 12 to 24 hours.
It's been April Fool's Day in Japan for most of the day already.
Right, but now it's
midnight. Just stopped being April Fool's Day there, I think. So the Digimon and Metabots did a thing again, but this time they're putting out an actual product too.
Oh, and it is midnight, by the way. So it's April Fool's Day, and that means that Adult Swim apparently is doing something right now.
Oh God, I'm scared.
Junior.
Yeah.
Adult Swim what?
You know that series of bumpers where they were hinting about a Adult Swim Junior thing?
I'm scared.
It's their April Fool's stuff this year, it looks like. Let me get it up there. Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah. Yep. It's
my
real.
fucking God.
Yep. Apparently, the stunt is shows redone with children's voices, it looks like, and with a very specific logo.
Like, you know what? Fine.
Yeah.
They can't all be, we're reviving Toonami. Oh wait, everybody actually really wants that.
We had whole movement and everything.
And also they've gone all out for this.
Yeah,
They've actually put
They
everything.
usually do. That's the funny thing. Like, they are
No,
very
for a
thorough
couple.
with-
Yeah.
Even if it's just putting mustaches on all the characters on all the shows.
True.
They still do it to
True.
all of the characters on
Well,
all of the shows.
I mean, yeah, that is a thing. So, I mean, and Cartoon Network is going to be doing cat shows and cat stuff all day. So,
Or fucking showing the first episode of
Huh.
like
Rick
6
and Morty babies.
yeah.
This.
And that's the way.
Nobody
to do
wants
it.
this.
It's April Fool's Day. They put in work and put in effort. You know what? Just
Sit and laugh.
let them have their 6 hour. Let them have their 6 hours of fun. Let them have their 6 hours of fun.
Anyway,
I just wanted to note that for the record because it's probably the only time we'll be able to do this when we're doing this show because April
Beware
Fool's
of any
tickets are not
announcements that sound too
Yeah.
good to be true.
right. And just look at and keep your eye on the calendar. I just wanted to note that because April Fools and Wednesday don't happen a lot, and they won't really happen a lot. So might as well get in here on the show. Right. Yeah. Pretty much. So hey. Why not note that on the show and have that for the record?
All right.
Like my birthday's one of those bad days that can't
Yeah.
Mine's not.
Well, anyway, you're going to note that for record's sake. But anyway, where were we going before I jumped in with that?
well, we were going to talk about Little Nas X.
Yeah.
We were transitioning to media stuff at least. I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah.
Well,
So
this
that's a good.
I guess we could talk about Satan shoes,
I mean,
which is
We could talk about Satan's. Yeah, we could talk about Satan shoes. We could talk about more specific things involving the music video.
I wanted to talk more about the moral panic.
Yes.
The
Yes.
quote moral panic that's surrounding the what is it,
Montero, yeah, the music video, yeah. Somebody please think of the children!
But
because no one has ever made a vaguely satanic music video before.
Well, mainly because it combines two of the worst 80s panics. Satanic.
Oh, right, because he's also gay.
Yeah, and gay panic.
that
Gay
resurfaced.
panic, satanic panic.
The
All-in-one.
satanic thing actually resurfaced in the 90s.
So did
What?
yeah.
I did a political cartoon for the school newspaper, district write-offs involving satanic cults. Back in '94.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But the satanic panic thing goes all the way back to like the mid 70s, but definitely remember it being the 80s, Dungeons and Dragons, that sort of thing.
80s, yeah, Dungeons and Dragons, anything that involved a skull and crossbones, pentagrams, heavy metal music, yada 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 yada.
So, the conservatives are having, their typical moan at this point.
Right? I mean, they were already wound up over the whole, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion at the Grammys. They were already wound up about that. And then Lil Nas X comes and goes, you know what? Watch this. Planned it for 6 months, right? 6 months, and decides to go. How about it? You thought that upset you? Oh, I got everything for you right here. I'm gay, I'm black, and I'm getting Satan the lap dance on a music video. I got it all for
More power
you.
to him. He seems like mostly pretty much a good guy, so
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's enjoying pissing them off.
yeah,
That's
pissing
the
off
fun part of this.
the pissing off these fucking hypocrites is never a bad thing.
Yeah, because
We can
what
do it
he
more.
has done, what Little Nas X has done, is expose this whole counterculture nonsense. They get upset over, the publisher of Dr. Seuss pulling some books. Oh my God, you're canceling Dr. Seuss! How dare you? Then Lil Nas X comes out with this music video. Get this guy out of here! Cancel him!
Yep.
Wait, I thought you were against cancel culture. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You just don't want. Yeah, you just don't want them to be canceled. You just want the gay, the black, these people out of here. You just want your nice little lily white world over here.
Yeah, people
Well, you
like
can be as racist
people
as
like
you want
me
to.
shouldn't be canceled. They say,
Yes.
especially even and possibly even especially when it's them not being canceled but canceling themselves based on their own judgment.
Yep. I mean, that's what this whole thing has done. It has exposed the business, as it were.
Like really, if you feel offended because your goddamn kids might like remove the mustache and nose from a potato doll and then put on like a mouth with lipstick, I got you some news. They were already intercompatible. They're just coming in the same box now.
Yeah.
I always took great delight in putting the mustache on the Mrs. Potato Head.
I mean, they're getting upset over Dr. Seuss books, a plastic potato. I mean, it was getting ridiculous. And then here comes Lil Nas X to go, hey, what do you think about this? Get it out of here! You're burning my children's eyes! How dare you! Be canceled, you! Oh, so you want him to be canceled, but you don't want this to be canceled. Oh, I see. Business exposed.
And really good on them for canceling the Cat's Quizzer. I still haven't forgiven that book for tripping me up when I was a kid with a question about whether my family has a 1-car or 2-car garage, and I read it too fast.
Lord. I've read all the Dr. Seuss books. I can't even recall the contents of the 6 books they removed from the lexicon.
There were a couple of those that I remembered.
The one about Mulberry Street, I vaguely remember, and I remember back then the Mammy images in it, and I was just like, something's off. Something's not right here. Like, nobody told me about Mammy imagery in my childhood in the 80s, or blackface or anything like that back then. But I just looked at it and I said, I think I remember as a 5-year-old asking my mom, I said, why do these black people look like monkeys?
Or why do they look like this?
And my mom was being nice about it, and she says, I think it's just because Dr. Seuss doesn't know how to draw.
Yeah, sure.
Which he himself admitted in one of my...
that I saw it on Mulberry Street was kind of like a B-tier Dr. Seuss book. It had some good poetry and stuff in it.
Well,
it was fun to read.
Here's the thing,
and
though.
If I ran the zoo, I know I at least had seen.
In the twilight of his life, because I got to see him in person in assembly in 1987, 88, and I think 89, because he lived in Carlsbad or Oceanside or whatever. It was in San Diego County, and so he would travel to all the schools in the area pretty much until he was no longer physically able, and he would do assemblies and he would talk to kids and try to by that time he was largely reformed. And a much nicer person in general, and he loved helping kids. And when I met him in the assemblies, one of the first things he said is, "I'm a lousy artist." He says, "I never learned how to draw properly," and he made a lot of self-deprecating humor about it, and carefully avoided any of the politics. But even then, I remember thinking to myself, come on now. You knew what you were doing. You know what you were doing in your angry...
Style is kind of unschooled.
It's
very creative.
It's like, look, Doc, we know you knew what you were doing in your 30s and 40s. Don't try to kid a kidder here. Us 10 and 11-year-olds are a little smarter than you give us credit for. You can try to run that bullshit on the 6-year-olds, but
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just interesting because, like I said, those books were widely available in public libraries and everywhere. You could get everything.
Yeah.
Technically, because of collections, you still can.
Sold them at exorbitant prices to people.
those books are not going to be sold normally, but they're going to be in the resale and, you know, yard sale for shop, that kind of thing for years.
I'll tell you what scares me. Is the idea that there are going to be people who are going to make trophy collections of banned things like that. Because, especially if that's all that they are, is all of those things that have been removed from the cultural lexicon for their imagery.
That's going to be solely. And there's going to be doing that solely, but
no. I know people. I'm telling you, there are people that collect Nazi paraphernalia and all kinds of.
Oh yeah.
Just because it's taboo, and it's
I don't think we're at a point where that could be a specific store thing of banned books, banned whatever. But I mean, if we ever get to that point, it wouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah, I'm always concerned about individuals who collect things simply because they know. Like, if you're building a museum of stuff that's fucked up, sure.
I mean, look.
For historical context? Yeah. But
I mean, if it sells, it sells.
But collections of horrors always bother me. It's like I have an Iron Maiden in my basement just because it's cool. Okay. Not literally. I don't actually have an Iron Maiden. That was a wild example. But yeah, it's like I know people who collect disturbing things just because they exist.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably going to happen here.
Yeah.
If it makes money, it makes money. So,
I'm not sure where I was going with that, so.
Yeah, but
I'll just let that drop off.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there were two of the books that they're not doing that anybody that wasn't like a big Dr. Seuss fan cared about or remembered existed.
Yeah, Mulberry Street and what's the other one?
If I Ran the Zoo.
Yeah, If I Ran the Zoo, that's right.
That one was particularly egregious.
Remember the name of.
Yeah, that one was particularly egregious because.
Yeah, Zoo.
It was much. Yeah, it was quite a bit more obvious what was going on there.
It would be nice if they could edit the art or something.
No.
I'm not sure how it
would
work.
No.
Can't do that.
Don't do that.
No.
And nobody wants to take the responsibility of editing Dr. Seuss's work. No, nobody wants to take that hit.
I didn't say it would. I just said it would be nice.
No, but the idea was floated, and they said there's no way to correct it authentically. There was no way to correct it without because then the undercurrent gets murky. Because there is an undercurrent in the words itself, in which case then it would no longer be Dr. Seuss's work. It would be something else, something freakish. Some Frankenstein.
Not that other creators haven't had their books.
Yeah, but this is
yes, I know.
It's synonymous with the brand, and so if they're going to put that out there as Dr. Seuss's work, then it needs to be Dr. Seuss's work. If it's because they would have to so fundamentally overhaul it. This has been a lengthy discussion going back and forth, like in the more quote unquote educational, more what's the word I want here? There's a word I want in the posterity groups, who are like, well, no. It is what it is. You just have to accept it and move on. It's if you tried to fundamentally change it, so much would have to be changed, then there would be nothing left of the original. In which case, then it's pointless.
Right. That's why the decision was made to pull it off the market.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I get that. I wasn't saying there is a way. I'm just saying it would be nice if there were. That's different.
I don't know if that's. No, but what I'm pushing back on you on is I don't think that there's room for wish fulfillment on this either. It is what it is, and we just have to accept that. I don't even know if it would be nice because once again, it would be.
I'm thinking more of the words than the pictures. Again, which I don't remember the words to any of them besides remembering being fond of the words of and to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street. Just that it was a fun
I suppose, but there was some stuff that we in our generation.
I get that, and I concede I have not read these books in probably upwards of 20 years.
I'm going to put out a term there with a preface that this term itself is not acceptable, but we are not hip to that jive. In other words, whatever... There's more underlying wrong with the book than just the art.
Mm-hmm.
The story itself has some problematic issues with it that are difficult for us to articulate because they're couched in language that is practically ancient to us, that is before our time.
Right.
So because of those combined elements, it's something we cannot rehabilitate.
You know, we talked earlier, by the way, I hate to bring it back to politics here for a minute, but we talked about Delta and Georgia earlier, correct?
I don't know if we... Well, yeah, okay.
I have some breaking news for you. Tonight, with about 45 minutes, about a couple hours left in the legislative session here in Georgia, Republicans are looking to tax Delta. What?
Specifically?
Asterisk.
Yes.
Asterisk. If you're asking if they should increase the taxes, well, in a manner of speaking, yes, but I'm sure there was some manner by which the company...
Isn't there like some constitutional issue with targeting a specific business as opposed to an entire industry?
Yeah, it's a very specific tax, and I'm trying to find out what it is because I've seen it as what it is, but it looks like there was a narrow vote in the Georgia House to rescind a jet fuel tax break. But I can also note this: the Georgia Senate did not bring it up before they adjourned. So there was a late push this evening to try and punish Delta for what they've been doing, but the Georgia Senate Republicans did not want to take it up and the time ran out. So that goes to show you how much Republicans are very upset about the corporate people in the state right now.
Wouldn't said tax change negatively affect all airlines?
Yeah, but it's specifically doing it for Delta, but...
Oh, so make it fair by making it unfair for everybody.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much, but
that's
why it didn't... But of course...
Sometimes you just gotta...
To note, the Georgia State Senate did not bring it up before they adjourned.
Sometimes you just gotta put the twisted logic out there in plain English, you know?
Yes. Yep.
Let's make it fair by ruining everybody's day.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way they do it. That's the way they do it. But I just wanted to note that here before we get out of here, to try and a little bit of add-ons and addendums before we walk out of here for the night, for the week.
On that note,
I pretty much covered all my entertainment stuff in fragments. So
Okay.
I mean, they're working on comics.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can say with some degree of certainty that I have worked out a plan with John. So we're going to talk more about that through email, and I'm going to talk to Kira about that, about trying to organize that arrangement and formalize it. So, progress. I think this will be my channel's first corporate deal, if you will. So
yeah, I think we've covered all we needed to cover for the week, so I think we should wrap it up.
don't forget to follow and subscribe. All right, well, that's it for this week's edition of Last News Desk on the Left. As always, I am your host, Mac Paladin. Well, thanking you for watching and apologizing profusely for anything offensive I may have said or inadvertently said. And on behalf of the crew here, thanks for watching and stay safe out there, kids. We'll see you next time.
Stay safe, wear a mask, and get vaccinated, kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dang it.